within myself, why not? Why can't I be the MVP of the league? Why can't I be the best player in the league? I don't see why. Why? Why can't I do that? I think I work hard. I think I dedicate myself to the game and sacrifice a lot of things at a young age. And I know that if I continue to do good, what I can get out of it. And if that's me going now or doing whatever, I'm willing to do it because I know that in the long run, it's going to help me.
In the NBA's 76 years of existence, we've seen numerous of what-ifs in different storylines. From the what if Kobe and Shaq never broke up, to if Tracy McGrady stayed healthy, or even a question like if Michael Jordan never retired. The scenarios and situations of what things could have looked like in the NBA from a couple of split seconds and decisions could have been vastly different. That brings us to today's video, analyzing the biggest what if in NBA history. And by the title and the thumbnail, you can obviously tell that we will be talking about Derrick Rose. But before I get into this video, make sure you hit that like button, make sure to comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. I post videos about sports, lifestyle, and pop culture. I try to post 1 to 2 times per week. But yeah, with that being said, let's get into the video. The talk around Derrick Rose's MVP season in 2011 has been a real debate over the past decade, and we are reaching a new generation that never got to quite see Derrick Rose in his true prime. One could actually make the argument that Derrick Rose wasn't even close to his prime, being at the young age of 22 years old winning the MVP and eventually being injured in 2012 at the age of 23. Most players hit their prime around that 26-27 age range to around the early 30s, with nowadays with longevity and new medicine in the 2020s, some players are still playing at peak performance, like Steph Curry, who's 35 years old, Kevin Durant, who is nearing 35 years old, and LeBron James, of course, who will be 39 in December of this year. But the main component and talking point of Derrick Rose's injury was for sure from his play style. Not necessarily him just being athletic, being able to make acrobatic moves, being able to finish in the lane over defenders, having tough lays, athleticism off the charts, but his landing, and that's really what can be looked at to what led to his ultimate demise in health. Now, this isn't to throw shade on Derrick Rose's career because he is still in the league now. Going into this year in Memphis, being there to help show the way to Ja Morant, who's been dealing with some issues off the court, really is a great situation, I feel like, for him to also be a part of a playoff team. And we even saw in the 2021 NBA playoffs, Derrick Rose had some great moments in the first round against the Atlanta Hawks, averaging 19.5 points and 5 assists, shooting 47% from the field and 47% from 3. Derrick Rose is also 34 years old now, born the same year as the likes of Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and players as such. And he also didn't really have the opportunity to play in his 2023 season. But let's talk about what if Derrick Rose never got injured in general. Think about how differently things could have been if Tom Thibodeau didn't play Derrick Rose late in that fourth quarter in the first round of the 2012 playoffs. Would we be talking about Derrick Rose as potentially being one of the greatest point guards of all time? That season, he had some injuries that were nagging him somewhat, so one can make the argument that the ACL injury in 2012 was inevitable. But if you look at the 2014-2015 NBA season, Derrick Rose really had a revitalization of some sorts. Now, obviously, in D Rose's MVP season, he averaged 25 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds per game, and also played 81 games in that season. And also in 2014-15, the year that I'm comparing to him having somewhat of a revitalization, he did miss 31 games because he tore his meniscus in February of 2015 before the playoffs, but he was able to average 18 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds per game. I bring this up even more because in the 2015 playoffs, he was able to average 20 points, essentially 7 assists and 5 rebounds per game. And that was the same playoffs where they faced the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second round. LeBron hit that 3-point shot over Jimmy Butler, which basically gave them the edge in the series to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. But D Rose was having a hell of a run in the playoffs that season. Now, obviously, I could be redundant and talk about the season after, and then 2016 when he got traded to the Knicks, what things would have been like if he was never traded. But we're not here for that. We're here to talk about the projection that Derrick Rose would have been. And people don't understand the type of success that he had in his first 4 seasons in the league. After Derrick Rose was drafted in 2008, he was able to turn around the Bulls to being a playoff team at a 500 record of 41-41, even taking the defending champions at the time, the Boston Celtics, to a 7-game series as a rookie, and he dominated as well. Not only did he win Rookie of the Year that season, but in that playoff series against the Boston Celtics, Derrick Rose at the age of 20 years old averaged 20 points per game, 6 assists, and 6 rebounds against the Celtics. And that was a time where the Big Three in Boston were dominating the league. Of course, like I said, they came off of their championship in 07-08, the season prior. The Bulls were a young team trying to find their way in the same conference as LeBron James, prime Dwight Howard, the Celtics, and other teams of that nature. And they were really able to push the Boston Celtics as a 7th seed to 7 games, where they ultimately did lose, but they earned everyone's respect. The season following, in the 2009-2010 season, the Bulls were pretty stagnant. They stayed at that 41-41 record, ending up as the 8th seed in the 2010 playoffs, playing against the number 1 seed Cleveland Cavaliers, where they did lose in 5 games. But Derrick Rose took his game to another level that year. He made his first All-Star appearance in the 2009-2010 playoffs, and he also averaged in that series against the Cleveland Cavaliers 27 points per game, 7 assists, and 3 rebounds, pushing his stats up by 6 points, and really able to stand out as a young superstar in the league. Now, D Rose, he's getting recognized as an all-star, a superstar in the league, and having a lot of individual success, but really in 2010-11, that's when things really took a huge jump. Before the season, he of course had the
"Why can't I be the MVP of the league?"
speech, and then really he just took his whole game to the next level. Derrick Rose of course had his MVP season and won the MVP award, and still is the youngest MVP in NBA history. But also the Bulls took a huge jump as a team, going from 2 500 seasons in a row in 2009 and 2010 to being 62-20 in the 2011 season, having the first seed in the Eastern Conference. And of course that was a time where the Big Three was just formed in its first season in their inception, and of course they would go on to win 2 championships in Miami. But it did seem like at the time that D Rose was there, he was going to have a huge role to saying if the Heat would have a dynasty or not. And they did end up playing against the Miami Heat in the 2011 Eastern Conference Finals. And I'm not going to lie, Derrick definitely didn't play his best in that series. Of course, it was an MVP year. He averaged 25 and 7, but in that series, he averaged less points and assists, averaging 23 points and 6 assists. But it's not just about the numbers. He shot 35% from the field and 23% from 3. So LeBron and the Miami Heat and company showed that there were still levels to get there. But Derrick Rose at the age of 22 years old definitely was on his way to greatness. The lockout season then soon followed in the 2011-2012 season, where teams only played 66 games in total. Derrick Rose had another great year. Not as great as his MVP season, but he was still the best point guard in the league and one of the best players in the NBA, averaging 22 points per game, 8 assists, and 3 rebounds, making his 3rd All-Star appearance at the age of 23 years old. And the Bulls had the first seed again for the 2nd year in a row, having a 50-16 record. Like I mentioned before, Derrick was dealing with some nagging injuries, missing 27 games in the 2012 season with injuries such as a sprained ankles, sprained lower back, growing, problems with his foot, and things of that nature. So one could make the argument, like I said earlier, that an eventual catastrophic injury was on the way and inevitable. But if we look at what could have happened with Derrick Rose if he never got injured, one can make the case that the season that LeBron won his first title, that D Rose could have. This was of course in a time in the 2012 season where players like Stephen Curry was still dealing with his ankle problems. He didn't really emerge into the scene nationally until the 2012-2013 season, when he was going crazy in the Madison Square Garden. And so Derrick Rose was by far still the best point guard in the league. There was players, of course, like Chris Paul, who were there that had something to say about that. Russell Westbrook, and at the time, Deron Williams, who was really cold back then. I remember watching all those guards when I was like 8-9 years old. Just a great time and beautiful time to watch the NBA. We had teams like the Thunder, who were the young team on the rise. The Bulls were great in the Eastern Conference. Just a lot of things like that. And one could make the argument that the Bulls would have definitely had a couple more championships than 6 right now if Derrick never got hurt. The 2 most athletic guards in NBA history are for sure Derrick Rose and Russell Westbrook. Westbrook was able to have a longer prime and ultimately a more successful career than Derrick because he was able to stay more healthy, and also he put up more historic numbers and had better players around him. But Westbrook averaging a triple-double for numerous years in a row is insane. But if you look at D Rose's athleticism and Westbrook's athleticism, they're honestly night and day. Of course, they're both super explosive, able to finish acrobatically in the lane. They're also solid at getting their teammates involved. I will say that Westbrook was definitely the better playmaker, and Westbrook had more muscle on him for sure. D Rose had more of a lighter frame, and that's probably what played a role into him getting more injury prone. But also, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, landing. And that's why when I watch someone like Ja Morant, I get concerned sometimes because he's always trying to dunk on somebody, which is good in theory. Of course, you want to go up strong to the rim, but how you land, it can really affect a lot. And there's been times he's had scary falls and didn't get hurt from it, but if he continues to fall like that, something bad could happen. And that's what happened a lot with D Rose. Since the 2012 season, Derrick hasn't been an all-star ever since. I did mention before about the 2015 season in Chicago where he had a really good year. And then with the Knicks, In 2017, he played solid. A couple stints with the Timberwolves and the Pistons, and of course, he had that 50-point game back in 2018, which was absolutely sensational for basketball fans, NBA fans, and Derrick Rose fans across the world. And he's still one of the most recognizable names in basketball history. And the words "what if" are always synonymous with the name Derrick Rose because everyone knew how special of a talent he was just a decade ago. When looking at D Rose's career since, we can obviously say that it's different than what we would have expected 10 years ago, but I would say that he's still overcome a lot and still has been able to inspire people. I firmly believe that everything happens for a reason and a purpose, and D Rose's injuries really strengthened him, if anything. For me, I've always been a Derrick Rose fan since I was 6 years old when he was a rookie, the youngest player in 2008 in the NBA, which is a long time ago. It's crazy. He's been able to show perseverance, and I feel like regardless of what could have happened in his career in terms of potentially being a top 5 point guard of all time and things like that, he still had a successful basketball career, being the youngest MVP ever still in NBA history, a feat that will be hard to break but definitely possible. And also, he's still in the league now. A lot of people look up to him. He's still a solid role player in the NBA, and I still feel like he has a good amount of basketball in him left in the tank. 2 years ago, he was hooping in New York. Of course, the team went into a younger direction now. That's why he lost playing time. But I would say overall that the biggest what if in NBA history still turns into the biggest why in NBA history because Derrick Rose has persevered throughout it all, despite all the adversity that he's been through. You guys let me know in the comments down below what you think about the whole Derrick Rose situation. It's definitely a sad story, but it's also a hopeful story. And if you get anything from this, it's just to keep going. We go through a lot in life, a lot of adversity, things that we question why it happened, why it happens to us, but just keep going because everything happens for a reason and a purpose, and we all have a purpose. And I firmly believe that D Rose found his. He's inspired for sure millions of people across the world, me being one of them, just to keep persevering and keep fighting and keep going because there's people looking up to you and we can never take anything for granted. I appreciate you guys watching. Always make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at SwaggyRuss, and also on TikTok at SwaggyRuss02 for cooking videos, shorts, reels, and things of that nature. Really enjoy creating content for y'all guys. Hope y'all are doing well. I know it's school time now. I'm definitely in it, but still expect a lot of content, a lot more things on the way. Y'all keep being blessed. Appreciate y'all always, and y'all have a good one.